Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast, a podcast carefully designed to introduce a wide range of very talented and highly skilled professionals ready to share their knowledge and advice with you. Please welcome the host of I Got a Guy podcast, Michael Drelichars. Hello and welcome to I Got a Guy podcast. I'm your host, Michael Drelichars. Thank you so much for being with us yet again. Had a short little break here, but we are back and looking to bring you some more great information, some new guests coming up here in the future, and we got a new one today. So we continue to head down that path of introducing small businesses to the community in an effort to help all small businesses grow and thrive because they really are the bedrock of our country and bedrock of our economy. So happy to be part of that solution. As you loyal listeners know, that we got to start from reading a book called The Go-Giver. Bob Burg wrote a great book talking about how giving referrals is really the key to growing a business. And if you haven't read The Go-Giver, I encourage you to do that. It's a quick read, short book, but really an awesome set of stories about giving referrals and how it leads to success all the way around. If you are new to I Got a Guy podcast, we welcome you. We encourage you to go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. You'll see a list of all of our past episodes and a link to the audio version, as well as you can also go out from that link to YouTube or to Rumble to watch the podcast. So whichever format fits your needs best, I encourage you to embrace it and enjoy the episodes. We have a wide range of guests that kind of fit different needs. So look through the list. There's over 100 episodes out there now, and look through the list and see what episodes serve you best. And maybe today one will serve you, and next week another one will serve you better. So I encourage you to go to igotaguypodcast.com for all that information. And if you'd like to be a guest on an upcoming episode, click on the contact or let's chat. I think it's called Let's Chat button. A little pop-up comes off the website. Put your information there. I'll get the email and we'll have a conversation, see how we can get you on as a guest in an upcoming episode. So love to have new and exciting guests always coming around and sharing their thoughts and their business ideas and their successes with us and with our audience. So this week we do have a new guest, a gentleman I've actually met recently, and had a really a chance meeting, I should say. But he is in the transportation industry just as we are with precise fleet tracking. So there is definitely some synergies between what we do and what he does. We had a great conversation very quickly, and I certainly invited him to be a guest on the show, and he eagerly agreed to be on the show. So we are really proud to have Joe Kayser with us from SynapseVue, and he's located here in Schaumburg, Illinois. But Joe, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate
Thank you, Michael. And appreciate to be part of the podcast, and always great to run into people in our industry that are local and doing some really neat things. Not just transportation, but your podcast and your focus is it's really exciting, and I'm honored to be part of it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And one thing I didn't touch on during my intro is I like to pick a law of stratospheric success that comes from the book The Go-Giver. And what I want to lean on today, and I think you're going to find this to our listeners, you're going to find this during our conversation with Joe. But the law of influence really hits home for me with Joe, and it's defined by your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interest first. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interest first. And when you get to understand how Joe and his company serve the transportation community, helping them be better and be more efficient, and which goes right to profitability, you're going to see how his influence and his experiences will benefit these corporations. So that law of influence, I think, really resonated with me, and I think you're going to find that here as you get to know Joe in much more detail. So, Joe, why don't you tell us a little about your background and about your company and how you got this thing started? And I know you're using artificial intelligence, which is one of the hottest buzzwords right now in the industry, right?
Yes.
In the country, everything is artificial intelligence, but you're using it to benefit the transportation and logistics industry. So, talk us a little bit more about that.
Yes. Great. Thanks again for the intro there. Michael, and I'll start from the beginning and make this as brief as possible because I have been in the industry for a little over 25 years. I started back in the late 90s, and we did have technology back then too. And
Of
I
course.
started on the business side, and but really found out quick in the very large and vast transportation industry that relationships still drive successful business outcomes. And our ability to maintain, drive, and find the value in those relationships. Technology enhances, and that's always been what I've lived by. And as you mentioned, the law of influence. Being able to influence positive outcomes, with the customers, and delivering, high level of service is critical. Advance that through 25 years of
Right.
I grew up on the business side, and being responsible for growing large organizations from humble beginnings, and and realizing that those successes, it still all comes back to that relationship side, and
Sure.
how you enhance that relationship side, and with the pressures of delivering results, and adding value and profitability to maintain those businesses, to grow those businesses. So that's where you're leveraging that experience really propelled me to leave corporate America, and and start up this company SynapseVue with my good partner Mike Amaro, who is also an industry veteran who grew up on the business side, but always was focused on implementing the newer technologies to drive efficiencies. So that was really the inspiration where we wanted to leverage today's latest iteration of great technology, generative AI, and really blend that with the other technologies to drive the efficiencies for
Sure.
transportation companies. And that's really it. But we believe in it's the triangle of success for technology implementation. It's people, process, and technology, and that's what we
Absolutely.
really focus on. And bridging all three, you will find the successful adoption to drive successful results, which are business results.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So tell us about, how you what your company focuses in on, and how it directly serves that transportation industry.
Yes, and that's where generative AI has been a major disruptor in the technology world
Hmm.
for automation. And so much of the workflows, operational workflows that drive the transportation side, yeah, are on the communication side. So, customer service, receiving a quote, booking a shipment, tracking and tracing the customer's freight usually entails some form of communication, whether it's email, text, or voice. Really, what AI has been, unlocked the ability to take those type of communications and drive that into traditional automations where you can automate those workflows,
Sure.
and take the busy work, the repetitive busy work, which is really just simple questions and answers that are usually in the system already, and being able to automate that process. So at its core, that's what we do. We automate the repetitive, redundant, and simpler questions and answers that are done at a massive level, so we can level up the employees that were priorly doing that, so they become less of a doer, more of a supervisor
Sure.
of those processes. So that obviously will drive results and make these companies more competitive so they can service the customer.
Right. So using this, what you're saying is using this technology, this regenerative artificial intelligence, not only do you streamline the process of communicating throughout the entire sequence of the shipment from order placed to order fulfillment, but so you take some of the human intervention out of the way, So you can speed the process up, but you can also do it 24 hours a day.
Yes, 24/7. And let me be very clear, because AI does get a lot of hype and overhype. Some areas it's actually underhyped right now, but that's another discussion. The AI can't replace everything we do. All
Sure,
right,
of course.
it's got to be very specific. And it still needs to be, the process itself needs to be engineered very effectively for it
Mhm.
to be really make the impact. But there with that, all right, it's not a end-to-end type of solution. It's really finding those gaps where where you have to have manual processes or manual labor do those gaps in the communication. AI is really good at that. And then you're blending everything in with the overall processes that deliver the service.
Sure, sure. So it takes out some of the redundancies and some of the I shouldn't say redundancies, the mundane tasks. It still needs human intervention in order to provide the content in
Mhm.
order for it to make good decisions.
Absolutely.
And you have to oversee that. I mean, you need humans to oversee the process, but artificial intelligence helps move that process along more efficiently and therefore more profitably for the business.
Very well said. Very well said.
Perfect, perfect. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And there is when we think about transportation at a broadest sense, even during the pandemic, transportation was a critical component that got a lot of attention in the media because things needed to get from one coast to the other and all points in between. And it was really such a critical component to just keeping life happening. I mean, it's really remarkable, and I think that gets downplayed. I think it gets overlooked, but transportation is such a big component. And when you go on the road, there are thousands of trucks everywhere you go. There's trucks delivering something somewhere, and so that's never going to go away. People are still going to be living in all nooks and crannies of this fabulous country of ours, and they need stuff, whether it's an Amazon delivery or it's your groceries or it's toilet paper or your automobiles or parts for automobiles or what have you. I mean, it's everything.
Absolutely. And that was, I will say, very few positives came out of the pandemic, obviously. But one of the positives from my perspective was people finally understood that supply chain and what we do for a living, it is complex. And for example, I mean, just the monitor sitting on my desk right now, it's possible for it to get to my desk that it's gone through 14 to 20 different transportation companies in order for it to effectively and efficiently get to my desk. And when that's disrupted, the black swan event of the pandemic, then people start to realize, wow, there's something to this, and how it and how complex it is, and how needed it is, how necessary that we do our jobs effectively, and that
Right.
we continue to do our jobs even better. Because disruptions happen, not just the pandemic. We have hurricanes, we have other disruptions, strikes, all right?
Of course.
And it's our job in the transportation industry to be able to read, react, and be better. So when these breakdowns happen, we're better for it next time, and that we learn from what's been done. And that's coming full circle around to that's how technology, it continues to play such a critical role in making the whole supply chain more efficient, more transparent, and better at what we do.
Right. And let me kind of step in here. I think what you're telling us, you're not necessarily saying that robots are going to take over the world and handle the entire transportation process. But the reality is that this technology that you are developing is going to help make things more efficient. And obviously, I think part of it also comes down to reducing the costs.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
getting products from one coast to the other, it's an expensive endeavor with fuel and time and everything like that. Every time somebody has to touch something, I mean, it adds cost to it. So if your software can help it be more efficient, it just seems to make sense that it reduces the cost, which helps all of the consumers.
Absolutely. There's a cost factor here. And just going back to the pandemic, the inflation that everyone has, felt and everyone got impacted, it started because of the breaks in the supply chain.
Yes,
And that's what really started that ripple effect of of the inflationary world that we live in right now. That's finally coming down. And that's where if the better we are from a technology standpoint, implementing from efficiencies, but also speed, as you mentioned, and eliminating those bottlenecks that that naturally will occur, that brings down the cost for everybody.
right. And I, there's been a lot of hype about, as you mentioned earlier, about artificial intelligence in the media, and I think it's still at its infancy. There's a lot yet to be developed using this technology. So I would hope that as time evolves and the technology evolves, maybe we can weather a storm like this, like the pandemic, which did impact the supply chain. Maybe we can weather it better in the future and not be so impacted because it really did. It crippled our country for a good, year plus, while we
Absolutely.
were trying to rebuild. There was also the other part that we didn't touch on is, the global political scene can have an impact. There was an issue with shipping containers out in the Pacific Ocean,
Oh, yes.
where there was thousands of shipping containers and there was a port strike and other things going on. So hopefully, we can all get better and smarter in the process, and your software can help us all be more successful.
That I want I and that's one of the reasons why we're so into what we do, because we want to be able to make that impact. Now, I'm not going to be able to solve for the whole supply chain, but I am going to help customer by customer make our customers are the transportation companies better at what they do, so they can
Yeah,
do it faster, better, and being able to not just react, but foresee and predict
right.
where these bottlenecks can occur, so we can avoid that, the issues for the future.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And we're going to take a quick break here, and then I want to like to get in some details. I want to. I suspect that a number of our folks in the audience haven't heard of this technology, haven't heard of your company and what you're doing for the transportation industry. So I want to help everyone kind of get their arms around what it means in a practical sense. So let's take a quick break. But why don't you share your contact information? If anybody wants to reach out to you and inquire more about how you might be able to help them, they may have a transportation company and they might be want to inquire about this. How do they best reach out to you?
So two ways right now. We have our website, which is www.synapsevue.ai. So synapsevue.ai. And you can also reach me via email, and that is Joe K. The K is after the E, so it's not a joke. All right, and Joe K at synapsevue.ai.
Okay, good. I'm going to put this information in our show notes and, of course, on our screen for our viewers so they can reach out to you directly. And as I tell you, our listeners every week, when you do reach out to Joe, make sure you tell him that you heard about him here first on I Got a Guy podcast. Joe would be thrilled to let me know that he got a flood of emails and phone calls from folks eager to learn more about how his company can help them. So that's great. I will get that information out to everybody. But we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and we can get into some more details here, and learn how this technology is helping real life companies that we work with and we see every day. So we'll be right back. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. I hope you're getting a lot of knowledge from this week's guest. But now a word from our sponsor. If your business uses heavy equipment as part of its daily routine, sadly, I don't need to educate you on the reality that this equipment has been the focus of many local thieves either. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions works with business owners that own commercial vehicles and heavy equipment. We help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through the use of GPS tracking technology. Recovering a stolen asset is just one way we contribute to the bottom line of the business. Our GPS tracking units used in heavy equipment are weather tight so they can handle the elements and even have an internal battery to continue to report its location should the battery in the asset be disconnected. We have several examples of the benefits of GPS tracking in heavy equipment. Reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions for a detailed discussion about our options and to see if it makes sense for your business. You can find Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions at precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com. Or call us at 847-865-6008. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. GPS tracking made simple. Now, back to the show. Okay, we are back. I am Michael Drelichars, host of I Got a Guy podcast. Thank you for being with us again this week. We are meeting with Joe Kayser from SynapseVue, and they're a locally owned company here working with using artificial intelligence to help the transportation and logistics industries be more efficient and more effective and more profitable. So obviously the first half of the show we talked a lot about very high level discussion, but now we want to get into some more details. So Joe, can you help us get our arms around this and tell us about the types of solutions that you've been able to help some companies? And we don't necessarily need you to spell them out by name unless you want to, but really talk about fundamentally what kind of solutions have you been able to help?
Yes, Michael. So, well, I actually start with, I think for the most part, the listeners, and everyone has engaged at this point in time with, generative AI, which Chat GPT, which, shocked the world back in November 2022, with how well it can write an essay
Right.
and do a lot of these other functions that are at, masters and PhD levels. All right. So the technology behind and how we put together these Chat GPTs, it is amazing. All right. And I use it for creating a custom recipe maker for the upcoming week. All right. But then how does that apply to business? Because
Right.
that's what I run into on a daily basis with our potential customers. And whether you're a small business, a medium-sized business, or some of the very large enterprise business, we're getting the same, well, that's great, but how does it work for us, type of thing. So I will say, kind of it also building upon our discussion in the first half, that where we apply generative AI is we look at how the company conducts their business. But I'll dive into a specific use case, which actually I talked about quoting and customer service, and those are definitely areas. But one specific use case that we're very in depth in building a solution with one of our customers right now, it's on the receivables side. And we are creating an AI receivables agent that will resolve billing problems with our customers. All right, which right now is a very manual human based process where the invoice goes out and it's not getting paid. So you have someone call the customer and ask, invoice 123, why isn't why isn't this getting paid? And you'll get a certain set of answers, from the customer, ranging from I didn't have the right, I never received the right documentation, the rate's wrong, we never received the invoice, all these things. And that's where, historically, you have a person that's going to take that, that answer, try to resolve it, and then give a response. The ultimate, goal is to get that paid. All right. Where our AI solution can now step in, is, instead of that email or that voice call, from our customers receivable, department going out, we can have the AI do that, and the triggers. All right. So
Sure.
we know there's an outstanding invoice. So we can have the AI and the email or voice, which the voice does, it's scary where the technology is with the voice, but we can have that outbound query go on why it's not getting paid. We can get that answer via the email or the voice response from our customer's customer. And then we can utilize our technology to actually find those answers, where if it was we didn't receive the invoice, well, we can have the system trigger and send that invoice, back to them, right away. We can also, create, business rules around a negotiation, where, let's say our tolerance for, they need a payment plan, well, we can build business rules into this conversation, whether it's email or voice, where we can go back and forth, and we can put a business rule, say, let's, we can have we can accept a payment plan over 5 weeks, up to 5 weeks. So we can actually have the AI, go back and forth in this negotiation. Now, this is all done, at a very secure level. We secure all these communications. This is
Sure.
not logging into Chat GPT, and it's not going through the LLM. We have our own special hooks, with the large language model. Sorry, I'm trying not to use acronyms too much when we're talking
Sure.
tech side, because we love acronyms. But we're leveraging, the company's data with the great, technology of, Gen AI, which can, have that human conversation, but specific to that company's information, and we can complete the loop, like for this use case on the receivable side. And it's really, I get amazed, when we actually, deliver the solution and it's working, because this is just, like on the receivable side, I was a CFO for 20 plus years. I lived, in this world. And to
Right.
your point, as you pointed out before, it's not just an automation of a, formerly manual task. All right. But this receivable agent, can work 24/7,
Right.
and can provide it, and they can always, answer the phone. They can always answer the email. And so the speed at which, you can do these transactions, which you can go very fast. But what we find when we're implementing solutions, you do want to, you don't want to have the response right away. You want to have some delay, in this,
Right.
because you're still interacting, on the other side with a human. So you want to maintain, that type of, communication as a
Sure.
normal communication.
Sure.
So that's one, I think, use case that can resonate, outside of the transportation industry, because, from all businesses, send bills
Yeah.
out and need to collect them.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it absolutely can cross multiple platforms that or
yes,
multiple industry segments. But one thing you touched on, I don't want to overlook is you just say it's a secure platform. So when that artificial intelligence is communicating with the customer and they say, well, here's my credit card number, and they rattle off their credit card number, that information is being received in. It's done in a secure manner, so there's no risk of any security breach, and the company can actually then process the payment because they're capturing that information directly from the user, and there's verbal authentication, there's all that
absolutely.
security there.
Absolutely. And that's where, with any technology, but especially with, the AI workflows we're working on, there's security of just the data,
Right.
and making sure that all these data flows not just, are flowing between, different systems, emails and outside. You got to make sure that that's all secure. And then, like you said, there's an added layer of security and privacy. So, in that example, if it is a credit card, that's a business rule where we'd have to have a hard stop, because in most cases, they have to go through another payment, a virtual payment, not over the phone. Okay. So, but that's a great example of, the AI would, if they say, yeah, we'll pay by via credit card, here it is, they're gonna, the AI response to that will be, we don't have a use case yet, but we will have a use case, I'm sure. Sorry, sir or madam, because it will know who to say, sir or madam. You'll have to go to our payment portal to process that credit card.
Yeah.
But I'll mark that down. That this was our conversation, and we look forward to the payment. So, but that's a great point. Because we our as any business, we live and die by our reputation, and and our ability to deliver. But also in technology, it is all about security, and making sure that that we're compliant, and actually more than compliant, that we're ahead of the curve
Right.
when it comes to securing people's data.
Yeah, you definitely have to be a step or two ahead of that because, especially when you're communicating with the end user, security is important to everybody, and everybody's tolerance is different. But the last thing you want to do is be too relaxed about that.
Absolutely.
So it's
You
really critical
never
that
want to be a headline. You never want to be a headline.
that's right. That's right. So share
Bet.
some other stories,
Yes.
other
Well,
use cases.
yeah. So I'll go back to the customer service. All right, because
Mhm.
that's really an area that has gained a lot of ground, not just SynapseVue. But our approach to the customer service agent is it's not. Think of it as a when transportation companies are getting inbound questions into customer service, they're
Mhm.
not asking for one thing. They're not, there it could be a multitude of needs, whether it's, I want to quote a shipment, book a shipment, I want to see where my shipment is, tracking trace, or my shipment has a claim, which it does happen. All right, there's an issue, or I just need to talk to somebody. All right, or there could be both. So really, what that's um a multifunction AI agent solution where it's actually built on multiple AI agents, because AI is good when on the communication side if you give it a very specific task. All right, and part of this is prompt engineering, part of this is some higher level type of engineering the responses to and from the large language models. But if you get too broad, you're going to get broad answers. You're going to get the wrong answer. And when it comes to customer service, you always want to provide the right answer. So we break down all those, the inbound into its component parts, and we classify it because we have one, call it a supervisor agent, all right, that will get that initial email and then find where it needs to go. All right, it'll identify, well, is this a quote? Is this a booking? And then it'll hand off to another agent. And then that agent is specific in the domain of that company on how to book a shipment. All
Right.
right, and making sure it's got the right information. So those are much more elaborate and much more valuable to an organization and time savers, because a lot of the way they handle these inbound requests is, especially at scale, your whole customer service department will have visibility to that inbox. And then it's everyone tripping over each other, trying to route these emails, figure out, do all that. That's probably one of the better use cases of that's going to be, those are the dramatic impacts that AI is making, where, it's no longer, wasting our time trying to figure out who needs to answer the question. The AI is that is really filtering and then answering if it can, and then if it can't, then it's going to hand off to that human, to take those other questions, or one of the very interesting aspects of AI is all these large language models and these tools can sense when a when the question is getting when the other side is getting frustrated in their communication. All right,
You're
so
reading my mind.
yes, they read the temperature. All right.
Sure, sure.
And you can recognize good emotions and bad emotions. And in our world, it's very important to recognize the bad emotions, because that's what loses us business. So
Absolutely.
the AI can recognize that and immediately bump that communication to a live human, so they can step in immediately and take care of that, if that's and that's the tendency, and that's what you want to do as a business owner.
Well,
and
absolutely. Yeah, you gotta handle those situations with kid gloves at that point.
absolutely.
If you have an upset customer, whether it be a damaged shipment or a delayed shipment or a partial shipment, some parts were didn't arrive and others did. Um, and so I would imagine that your front end artificial intelligence also will decipher language barriers, different languages that it confronts? And does it also communicate in that language if it determines that maybe it's a Latin American dialect? Would
Mhm.
it then communicate in that dialect if it happens to be an Asian dialect or European language? Would it be able to decipher all that and communicate in in the native language of the caller?
And good question. Yes, AI can. We don't actually, run into that in our world. And this is even on the global freight forwarding side, which I was on for 20 years. The language of even international freight, is still English. So we don't
Okay,
actually run into that too often.
you don't.
I would imagine, but let me, I do know of use cases where that is utilized,
Okay,
outside of what we do. All right. And I would foretell that we are going to run into that more so on the training materials because, those are other use cases that are very prevalent where we can leverage AI to put together training programs, very pointed and being able to translate our training materials into any language for training purposes too, and SOPs. So those use cases we haven't run into yet, but they're there. But yeah, to
sure.
your point, I mean, this AI is going to be a level setter on many different levels, and language is going to be one of those level setters that's going to impact all of us as we move forward, and the opportunities there and the benefits that we could receive from that are great.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And I can see this also being a blended scenario where in some cases you have, a human intervention, in other cases the artificial intelligence would fall. So it's kind of like blended together.
Yes. Yep.
And you just touched on training. I could see where an artificial intelligence case would be monitoring what the agent is saying.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
everyone
Yes.
has, this call may be recorded for training purposes. Well,
Mhm.
you can use artificial intelligence to evaluate the skills of each and every agent all the time from a coaching standpoint to help your live agents be better.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's those are the benefits, and also I want to touch a point because it popped in my head as we're speaking this, and because I also think I think a lot of people are going to think, oh, that's Big Brother, and and watching over that, and but that's also goes to the one of those points that I want to make on the people side, and how important it is to spend, especially when we're talking to organizations, spend time talking about the technology, but make sure you're spending talking time about the people, about their culture, and what makes them special. Because
Right.
you have to have those understandings, and how when you're applying these technologies, how it's going to be embraced. And with that too, and that's where both my partner and I thought it was important that yes, we provide technology solutions. So we're tech people, all right. Yeah, and we are making companies more efficient. Uh, but the other side of this is, we went and got certified as AI consultants from a strategy standpoint. So we can come in because we want to build those partnerships and those organizations. In order for them to embrace the technology, the organization needs to understand the technology and actually have a strategy roadmap. Not just implement a software, but AI needs to be part of the culture in the organization because we're, you said it before, we're just in the beginning stages of the AI, era. And,
Right.
and with that, it's not, you don't want to have to depend on the outside to always bring you the solutions. You need to be, learning as we go,
Sure.
and partnering, and and make sure that your organization is AI enabled as we move forward, as we're
Right.
adopting newer technologies and taking advantage of that.
Yeah, even if it's on a small scale to start, the sooner you embrace it, there are ways to fold that in to a bigger and bigger piece of your organization, but it doesn't have to be. It's not a flip a light switch and all of a sudden AI is running your company. We're talking about kind of folding it in a way that is manageable, but is it becomes part of the culture and really gets integrated in very closely with what you have today.
Absolutely, absolutely, because everyone needs to have to crawl before they can walk, before they can run. I mean, that's the way I describe the AI journey is don't think and don't think you're behind in the race.
Not at all.
The point is to be in to be in the race,
Right.
and be comfortable with what you're doing, but embrace it, but don't ignore it. That's the one thing you can't do.
Yeah, you can't ignore it. And like with all other types of technology, there are the early adopters, and there's always those that are the laggards and that are resistant. And I would say that I recall. I mean, I'm old enough to recall before cell phones were in everybody's pocket. I know there were companies that were resistant to having their employees have cell phones in on the floor, and now it's become such a component. It's like, well, you know, everyone's adopted it now, and artificial intelligence is going to be the same kind of thing. It's going to be it is part of our life, and now it's how do we fold it in to enhance what we have today
Absolutely.
and help our companies be more successful.
And the best way to start is where I think most people are, on the personal side. Just
Right.
log into Chat GPT. You use some
Be
of the
familiar
other
with it.
other AI. Just and see and just explore with it.
Right.
And then but also think about when I'm at work. Well, how can just simple things like what I'm doing. How can I make that more efficient?
Right. Yeah.
And so that's I think the first step, the important step is just to embrace it.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a question for you. Going back to the transportation industry, one industry that I've had some exposure to several years ago is the less than load uh, logistics companies.
Yeah,
Uh,
LTL.
yeah, the LTL stuff.
Yes.
How would you incorporate for a company that does less than load and they're delivering a few pallets of merchandise from you know North Carolina to Montana, and along the way this truck's going across the country and they're picking up loads and they're dropping off there. You know, it's an interesting model, and efficiency is really critical to being successful. Do you have you had situations where your software has been able to help in this model? Or do you have a use
Yeah,
case for that?
directly. All right. And by no benefit for me. All right. My partner actually he spent 5 years in the less than truckload industry with Yellow. All right. So he really understands the LTL process. And as you said, it is rather complex, and there's a lot of uh different points along that freight's journey. All right. Where where AI can help. And and actually this is a use case we're currently working on,
Right.
where we've partnered with actually an LTL transportation management system. All right, they have their own ERP, but we're building a real-time freight audit. All right, because for the non-transportation, or for some people in transportation, what happens a lot, as that freight moves through that trucking system,
Hmm.
there's points in time where it gets reweighed, or or reassessed. I'll just keep it generally speaking, where the rate may change based on its size or weight. All right, and what happens is the shipper will get notified. All right, but usually nothing's done with that until the end of the shipment happens, and and the invoice shows up in the mail where it was different than the original quote, and there's the reasons. So what we're building, is, along with a partner of ours, is real time. So when the customer gets when the LTL company notifies of a change, all right, or maybe it's a damage or something like that, but really this is on the freight rate that would impact the rate of that shipment.
Hmm.
We're notifying the the shipper right away. All right, they get notified, but we notify them. But we're also doing a live audit. Whether was that a legitimate change or was it not? Because a lot of times things happen with the LTL provider where it's actually not right when they change their rate. All right. So, and I won't play percentages, but maybe they're 50% right at the time. In my experience, I'm maybe I'm being a little unfair, but there's a lot of discrepancies that happen. So we're building a tool where where we identify, all right, did they unfairly just change the rate? And then with that, our AI is then contacting the LTL shipping company, trucking company, and disputing that rate, before while it's still in transit, because that's the most effective time
Right.
to dispute the rate so you can get it resolved. So,
Right.
it's a little
Not after
long-winded story
not
there,
after it
but
gets delivered and the invoice shows
absolutely.
up. It's too
It's
late.
usually too late. It's usually too late. So, that's where it's getting more real time, and that's where our AI, as part of that workflow is, really, in making an impact.
Yeah. Well, I can see that, really benefiting the LTL shipper, but also ultimately benefiting the end user,
Oh,
from
absolutely.
a customer satisfaction perspective. And so it really helps satisfy everybody in the process. And it's just because it is a complicated process. I've worked with a number of these companies many years ago, and it's got so many gotchas that could come up and bite the shipper, that anything you can do to help streamline that process. So that's a great
Absolutely.
application.
Yeah, and I like that application because that's not AI taking away someone's job. All right.
Right.
That's the speed
It's enhancing it.
AI can work at. Yeah. And that will prevent, issues from happening in the future.
Right. I totally agree. Yeah, that's tremendous. Well, that's awesome. Any other stories you want to share, or is that
Well,
kind
there's a lot of stories that we can always
of
share, but
okay?
I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, this has been great. This has been
I
awesome.
I could spend the next 10 hours talking about freight, just not just freight and AI, and it's really it's always been an exciting time in freight, but I will say the future is even going to get more exciting, with the opportunities that are out there, and it I just I'm grateful, to be part of this. I really
Yeah,
am.
that's tremendous. So, what type of companies would you want? Let's, we have lots of people listening to this podcast, but what type of companies would you want to call you for a deeper discussion? Would these be delivery companies, shipping companies?
Yeah, ma mainly, transportation, trucking companies, logistics is really where we shine. In, specific sectors, there's freight forwarding, there's drayage companies, there's LTL companies, and trucking companies. We really thrive. Now, we help, where there's repetitive and there's got to be some level of scale. But, our entry level is typically, rule of thumb. I'll talk to anybody to have a conversation. I enjoy talking. All right. But typically you're looking at transportation companies with 30 employees and above. All right.
Okay.
Because that's really where you just kind of think about that. That's really where,
Where the economy start to make
the kind of
sense.
in the economies of scale. Although we're working with some startups because they're looking to, and they're hitting the ground running. They're starting to get their scale now, but they don't need to necessarily hire at the rate they used to because they've already implemented our customer service agent. So they can already handle the workload. And one of these customers, is just currently going up. They're about to quadruple their business, over the next couple of months, and they're excited because they're like, instead of having to hire five people, we just need to hire one.
Right.
That's what's exciting about this technology
Yeah,
is,
sure.
yeah, typically you want to be of scale to have the implement in it, but we just have a use case where it was a 5 person startup freight forwarder, and now they're taking on this big rollout, but they don't need to double the size of their business to handle it.
Yeah. That's tremendous. And I work with a number of delivery companies and trucking companies, and so I'm thinking through who I might want to introduce you to. But certainly anybody that's listening that might be somewhat related to logistics
Yes,
would
absolutely.
would would would
Absolutely.
would benefit from having a conversation with you and seeing if you can provide them some guidance or some direction.
Mhm.
So that's awesome.
And,
Cool.
and, and, I, and I will just real quick, Michael, too. I just want to shout out to the community too. AI is a journey, and everyone's going to be at a little different place in the race as they move along this. So I open up this up to any business that wants to learn more with AI. That's part of what we do about being able to help each other out. I may not to be able to to help you directly, but I can always point somebody in the right direction and refer other companies that can specifically help them. So I want to throw that out there for everybody.
Yeah, that's a tremendous offer and you're exactly right. Everyone's at a different level, and a lot of people are just starting, and you obviously are much deeper into the whole artificial intelligence in general. So you can kind of discern this might be a good direction for you to go, even if you personally can't help them out. You can kind of guide them along the way. So that's very generous of you to offer that to our listeners because I really think more and more people need to, will be embracing this. And now it's a matter of how do we how do we kind of, get up to speed quickly and figure out how is it going to benefit us and our organization, whether it's a small company or medium-sized company or a larger company. So that's
Agreed.
awesome. Good. Well, cool. Joe, again, share your contact information with our listeners. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, your email address, your website.
Yes. So our website is www.synapsevue.ai. That's SYNAPSEVUE.ai. And then my email address is JoeK at synapsevue.ai.
Great. Okay. So they can email you or just check out your website. A lot of good information. I've viewed your website. Great information out there, and certainly even a link to your LinkedIn profile. So that's awesome.
Appreciate that, Michael. And
Yeah,
yeah, for the group, just if you just want to talk freight, if you want to talk AI, always available.
that's great. I really appreciate that. And as we wrap up the show here, I want to just also throw a little comment in about precise fleet tracking. That's my day job, how we actually pay the bills around here. But I work with same type of companies that Joe works with. A lot of delivery companies, trucking companies, and most common solution we're providing nowadays are dash cams. Video footage is critical. We're seeing a lot of crazy things on the road nowadays, and our video footage has been able to help discern what's really going on the road. And I had one client in Florida. He's had numerous accidents over the past about 8 or 9 weeks now, and most of them have not been his driver's faults. Some really one very tragic situation, but some of them not so major, but still an inconvenience nonetheless. And so having that video footage has been very helpful for him as the business owner and for his insurance company to understand what's really going on because insurance is expensive for every company out there and trucking companies especially. So if you own a trucking company or a delivery company or any kind of commercial company where you have vehicles on the road, I encourage you to reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions so we can have a conversation about how we might be able to provide some value to you. It's a no obligation conversation. You can find us on our website, which is precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com, or call 847-865-6008. It's 847-865-6008. We'll have a conversation and see if we can provide any value to you in one way or another. And so that's my offer to you, to our listeners. Love to chat with anybody. But again, Joe, thank you so much for being with us this week. We really appreciate it, and best of luck to you as we approach the new year here. And I think it's going to be a tremendous year for all of us. I'm very excited about the future, and I know artificial intelligence is going to be a big part of that. So
Michael, thank you so much for having me on. It's such a good time. And I can't, I just want to say, you do need to contact Michael if you have a truck because, safety first. I've lived it my whole entire career too. It's a must. So, please reach out to him and, happy New Year, happy
absolutely.
holidays and, blessings to all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, and to our listeners, thank you for listening. Subscribe to this podcast if you're not already subscribed, and share it on your social media feeds so everyone else can hear Joe's story and get the word out. So, thank you for everything, and we will talk with you all again next week. So, thank you, and make it a great week. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. For past podcasts and more information, go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. Please share this podcast on your social media feeds and tune in again next week to I Got a Guy podcast.